It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Welcome to a very special Friday. It's our final Red Eye Radio before we go on vacation. Gary, how are you?
I'm on vacation now. There was really nothing going on yesterday.
No, it was funny because I just kind of took a drive and out in the country yesterday. I said, I'm going to turn all the news off and just turn the radio off. And I got back and I was like, yeah, nothing going on. So it was beautiful. I did have to take a little bit of a drive. And I just love driving in the summer. It just feels like vacation if you're on a highway in the summer. Not in traffic, but when you get out of the traffic, it feels a bit like vacation. And I'm looking forward to doing some driving next week with all my grandkids in the car.
Now you'll like what I was doing yesterday because I told you the other day that I have problems where my air conditioning's going down the the emergency drain.
Yeah.
Which means the primary drain is plugged.
Right.
It's like, well, I got to solve this, and you can use. We were talking about the other day. Use bleach, use vinegar, whatever to pour it down. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd use the bleach because it's just more effective for whatever my problem is, whether it's calcium or whether it's mold or whatever that gets in there.
Right,
bleach,
slime.
Yeah,
that kind of
bleach
stuff.
always works better for me than the. So I tried it the other day and everything was fine. I went back out today and it was there, but I was prepared.
Yeah.
And I found it on Amazon. I didn't even know it existed. Now I do have one. For a different kind of tool, but I have one for the toilet. Like I don't use Drano or stuff like that, or snakes. I've got that contraption that you actually pump it full of air, and there's this little bladder that goes right into the toilet bowl, and you click the button, and you can put it up to about 30, 40 psi, and it's got a bladder in. Mm-hmm. And so this bladder, when you hit it, expands and it, shoots the air right down. Well, they've got that same sort of thing I found it the other day. I said, I'm just going to have this just for preparation. And I used it, little CO2 cartridges. And you put it right, it's got this little seal that goes right on there. And you go, Foop!
Yeah.
It goes, Foop!
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It seems like it's clear.
Right.
So that was my day yesterday. And if there was ever a day not to go into your attic, it was yesterday. And everybody up north, yes, because we don't have basements. Many of our air conditioners, and furnace is actually in the attic. And the last thing you want is any leak because you don't want it coming through your
I've had that happen
ceiling.
multiple times, actually, and it is not good. I actually was on vacation one time, and my sister-in-law was house-sitting, and she didn't call us because she didn't want to give us the bad news. So I come home, and there it is, and I'm like, what happened? She goes, I didn't want to ruin your vacation. She goes, I knew you were going to have to fix it one way or the other. And so I was like, okay.
I was like,
fine.
Okay.
Fine. So I ended up having to build one of the things is that's the evaporator coils and the heater and everything. The furnace are up in the attic on that one unit, and so I had to have them build a custom metal pan, the drip pan, for the entire length of the box because before I replaced it, that box was sweating in certain places, so it was just dripping down.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then it got into one area and then just kind of concentrated and came through the ceiling. So I spent was it the other day? It was Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday. I went out and cleaned my condenser coils outside. There's a foam you can get that kind of breaks down the dirt on the outside unit, so you spray it on there. It's actually made for the evaporator coils, the inside coils, if you have them in your attic or where you have them. and it helps to kind of open those up and keep that air flowing. And I had to do that I did that for the condenser coils on Wednesday, because I thought to myself, I did it. I think I did it in February or March maybe, and I thought, okay, I need to get back out there, and because with all the lawn mowing and the gardening and everything else on the one unit, there's just dirt flying all the time, and you just got to keep that clean. If you want cold air in Texas, you got to make sure you maintain that equipment.
So I was, doing that and trying to, pay attention to all the analysis and in the media. And when I would, let's put it this way, the analysis of the media, they really never hit the legal things at all. It gets to be emotion from the left.
Yeah.
And the only thing, I'll tell you one thing that I was disappointed in the affirmative action ruling is as soon as I saw the decision was based on the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. And I went, okay, now wait a minute. Remember the gay marriage ruling? The gay marriage rulings changed the Equal Protection Clause. Now, the protection still remains the same, but it was basically changed to equal treatment of the law. Equal treatment, not equal protection.
Right.
Which meant everybody must be treated exactly the same.
And that's, by the way,
right.
that's the basis of many believing that the Supreme Court needs to review the gay marriage ruling. Of saying that that's not what the 14th Amendment says.
Right. But I'm looking at the current precedent now that exists because of the Supreme Court ruling, and I was hoping that one of the conservative justices would say, and I knew they wouldn't because they're not going to look at that ruling and say equal treatment under the law is what the Democrats put in for gay marriage.
Yeah. So
equal treatment has to apply to everybody across the board. They used basically the fact that the Constitution doesn't allow any type of racism whatsoever. But I was hoping, I didn't know how they would try to finagle it in, because if they could finagle it in, because my entire hope, and we said this during the whole gay marriage ruling, said, okay, they've changed the 14th Amendment because people are treated equally all the time, and groups are treated unequally all the time. For example, that's how they justify higher taxes for people that make more money. Well, we're treating everybody in this particular group alike, and it would be that economic group. You're being treated the same because you're in, and therefore we can tax you. But under what in the gay marriage ruling, because it was before that, it was equal protection under the law, which meant after the Civil War, in the judicial system, in the criminal justice system, or even in the civil litigation system, you had to be treated the same. That was really what that was about at that time, and the fact that the Bill of Rights applied to blacks that were slaves as it did anybody else in the country. That was really the focus on it. And the gay marriage ruling changed that to equal treatment under the law, which means the government needs to treat, because marriage is a licensing process. Some may view it as a benefit. Some may view it as a benefit. Many don't, but may view it as a benefit or a licensing process. And so it's not about the judicial system. It's about how you treat people. It's like, well, all groups have to be treated the same there. And we're like, okay, fine. Well, I was hoping that the conservatives would focus in on that so we could get to my dream, because I believe I said when the gay marriage ruling passed, all right, let's approve gay marriage as long as you're consistent on this, liberals, and on taxes, everybody pays the exact same amount. And I'm hoping, my hope is always been that somebody's going to look at that eventually.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones that ever talked about that. I don't think anybody has ever talked about that at all, how the gay marriage ruling might apply. If you're saying to yourself, well, why should I pay the same amount in taxes? The gay marriage ruling changed the 14th Amendment where it's equal treatment under the law, not equal protection. So everybody needs to pay the exact same amount in taxes. That's what I'm hoping for. And I didn't get any help from the conservative justices yesterday.
Yeah, no, that might come down the road. I don't think it's. I think it's going to be the reverse. If there's any review of the gay marriage ruling, it's going to be that they go back and say, well, it's a dangerous precedent to say equal treatment, because then you do apply it to exactly that. You're going to have to apply it to a lot of things. In terms of what the universities are going to do going forward, I don't know that I expect much of anything to change. If you think about the liberal campuses in America, while officially they're not allowed to do it, I don't think much is going to change in their mindset. But, Charles Payne on Fox News made a point yesterday afternoon. If you don't know, Charles Payne is black. And he said, this can be an opportunity for black families because there needs to be a greater focus. I think there has been. I would kind of debate Charles on that. And maybe he wouldn't debate. Maybe he would accept that point. But you and I have watched this over the years. Families, including black families, who have looked for a stronger educational process from the beginning, to make sure that their kids are getting the best education possible. And we talked about that in certain states where the Obama administration wanted to go to court. In fact, they withdrew, I think, the one lawsuit, or they were going to file, and they didn't. I can't remember if they actually did sue the state. But the voucher programs are, what they see, the liberals see as the death knell. And you had families all over America that are looking for their kids to get better educations. And so, to Charles Payne's point, he said, look, the focus needs to be on the education from day one, so that by the time they get to the college age and they're applying for college, these kids, the kids of color, can go to any college that they want to go to because they've done the work, they put the work in.
Well,
that's what it really is. Should be about.
Look, I think that's a great point to make, because, as we know, the monopoly of the teachers' union on public schools in this country is completely and totally unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And where it does the most damage is in liberal cities, and most liberal cities are the minorities, that would be minorities defined across the United States, are the majority in those cities. And they're not being served properly. And so it's a great point to say, because when you look at it, what the left is saying is, we don't care. We don't care, because they do everything to fight charter schools.
Right.
Also, there's a couple of studies out the other day how well private Catholic schools and charter schools are actually doing right now as a percentage, as to where they are. And so opening that up and ensuring that everyone in the cities of this country get a proper education is extremely important. But it's interesting that the left doesn't seem to ever care about that whatsoever, to try to improve the schools in the inner city, yet they wish that colleges will take students in who don't have the grades to get in because of the liberal failure in the cities.
And
which is a great point by Mr. Payne.
Yeah, I thought so. And we go back, wasn't it Atlanta where they found that certain teachers and administrators were getting together? They would actually get together in the evening and change the scores and answers. It was a grade changing party is what they called it. Yeah. I don't know if that was a media term, by the way, or if they called it that themselves, but they wanted to change those standardized tests for those students in order to have it reflect better on their school system. Now, that's an isolated incident, but it is indicative of the mindset of individuals who don't want your kids to have to work for anything. We should give them a passing grade simply for being there.
Well, you think about it, the interesting thing about this entire thing is much of the discrimination, when you look at the Ivy League schools, are a minority that are more of a minority than blacks.
Yeah.
And that is Asian Americans that only make up 5 little over 5.5% of the
Right.
American population.
Right.
You look at some of the major discrimination cases that have been brought up, and
Right.
it's against Asian Americans.
Yep. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing that the liberals conveniently didn't bring up yesterday.
Right.
But we'll talk more about that. And the other, were you surprised that it was 9-0 on the post?
I
postal worker?
was that it sends it back down to the lower courts, but I was surprised that it was a unanimous decision.
Well, but by what the liberals agreed to, because but that basic ruling. Well, we'll get to that coming up. Right? Hang on.
It's
Because
very
if
interesting to
if I
take
start it
apart.
out right now, we'll go another hour.
And student loans, that case still, that opinion still yet to be issued, but likely will be. In fact, most believe it will be later today.
866-90 Red Eye.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. When talking retreads, sometimes there's worry when it comes to wear. But just because the tread is worn on a tire doesn't mean the casing is. Quality casings can far outlive their original tread. And once they're on your vehicle, the tread on a retread can last just as long or longer than the tread on a new tire. The key to preserving casings, whether new or retreaded, is regular tire maintenance checks. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, one of the interesting things, and I just want to go back here to the affirmative action, and by the way, we'll probably be jumping back and forth as thoughts come through our mind, and we'll hit the postal office, the 9-0 decision on religious freedom, and the impact that might have. There's a lot of things I don't think the left has thought about what the left agreed to in that, but I thought it was interesting how it was brought up that the Grutter decision in 2003 that the majority was signed by Sandra Day O'Connor that said there has to be a sunset on all of this. It eventually affirmed, even though they kept with the fact that race can be a factor. Now, even in the Grutter decision, it could not be the only factor.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it could
Right.
be a factor among many factors to be taken into consideration, and this court felt that they weren't even applying that in this particular case of universities that were part of it, Harvard, and I forgot who else the other one. It doesn't matter. North Carolina, University of North Carolina, and Harvard, but they went and even talked about the fact that the part of the problem is in Harvard and in University of North Carolina there was no sunset provision. And that was part of the. Now, it wasn't part. She didn't say it had to be in 25 years, but she said in 25 years, she suggested the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary to further the interest in diversity, and that was in the last decision, which meant even the liberals that signed on to that, the justices even agreed to the fact that this eventually has to end. The majority decision said it eventually has to end, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't mandate it.
Right. Yeah.
And the problem with doing something like that is you're saying that discrimination is okay constitutionally for a temporary period where that exists nowhere in the Constitution.
Exactly. It creates that, affirmative action created its own form of racism.
Right.
It was. By the way, yes, it was Atlanta. 178 teachers and administrators changed answers to increase test scores. Wow.
The Bonus Show.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Reading here from SCOTUS blog, Justice Sotomayor, a graduate of Princeton and Yale Law School, who was once called herself the perfect affirmative action baby, dissented in an opinion that was joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Justice Jackson. Now, the point that I wanted to bring up here is Justice Jackson, and if Justice Jackson is agreeing with Sotomayor that she is also, an example of affirmative action, you can see the problem with affirmative action when it lets people slide through in an education. You mentioned the thing in Atlanta, because think about it. Justice Jackson got all the way to the Supreme Court. We know that she was chosen strictly because of her color and her sex, and to show you how it's bad when affirmative action allows you to slide through and not live up to certain standards. We have a Supreme Court justice that doesn't even know how to define what a woman is. She doesn't even know what a woman is.
Right. She had how many opportunities, by the way, during
Yes.
that questioning, during the confirmation process, that she was asked, and
Right.
she didn't answer the question. If you don't, how can you not recuse yourself from any case
Right.
that involves
Right.
a female?
She isn't qualified to be a Supreme Court justice based apparently on the fact that affirmative action just let her slide right through where she can't even tell you what a woman is.
Right.
Talk about unqualified.
Right.
I've been waiting all day to say that. All day I've been waiting for
Because
that.
we know that she knows what a woman is.
Yes. Yes, we know she knows what a
She
woman
had every
is.
opportunity to say it, but couldn't
Right.
and won't.
Right. It just that just shows how radical she is. But yes, we understand she knows what a woman is, but that's too juicy not to, because you could actually use that in a legal standpoint.
Well, she
because
didn't answer the question.
right.
So if you are to read it, if you're to read the transcript
Yes,
from the confirmation hearing out loud, then historians down the road, if they review it without walking into it without any knowledge of the tone or anything else, and you just read the transcript, she's not capable of answering the question, which we believe she is.
Yes. Now the other case with the postal worker, who when he got the job didn't have to work Sundays, and then when the post office, and he was part-time, I believe, right? Yeah, he was
Right.
part-time,
Right.
And when he got the job, didn't have to work Sundays,
Right.
and so he took the job because he didn't have to work Sundays. And then when he started delivering Amazon, he said, "No, it's against my religion. A Christian,
Right.
he believes Sundays should be reserved for rest and worship, unless you're in sports, or talk radio, because Sunday's actually a work day.
Yeah,
for
we
us,
actually
right?
work on Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But that case was 9-0, and that was really based on, that the whole accommodation thing. What is it, an undue hardship? And they went into the minutia, and this is where the opinion comes in. And the opinion comes in on both sides.
Right.
Because who can define what a undue hardship or reasonable is?
Right.
And
right.
in this case, it was 9-0. Everybody agreed that it wasn't unreasonable. In fact,
Right.
what was the? I'm trying to think that the. What is the word that they actually? What they actually used here? The question of whether of when additional costs constitute an undue hardship received relatively little attention. Alito stressed, and although the court's opinion in the precedent indicated that it would be an undue hardship to require, this is another case, an airline to bear more than minimal cost in order to give, this is another one, Hardison Saturdays off to observe the Sabbath. Alito reasoned that was not necessarily intended as an authoritative separation or interpretation of what it means for something to be an undue hardship. To the contrary, Alito noted elsewhere in Hardison, the court indicated 3 times that an accommodation is not required when it entails substantial cost or expenditures. But they also looked at it, and again, this is all about the undue hardship or whether it's just a small burden, and they view this as a small burden.
Well, that's what Alito, in fact, he was explaining that the courts since Hardison have interpreted the phrase undue hardship to mean any effort or cost that is more than de minimis.
Right.
In other words, the least.
The least, right.
And so what the high court was saying here is that courts have to go back and that standard can no longer apply. It needs to be demonstrated by the employer that it is clearly a hardship, significant cost increase is incurred by accommodating this religious belief of this employee. And
I thought, I just, again, opinions as to defining what is reasonable or not reasonable can vary among people. I thought
to your point,
right.
Yes, and I think that's why it's going to be. I don't know where the lower courts will go with this, or the courts in general. They also mentioned the courts in general as they review cases like this. And I thought, well, it still leaves it open. I know it has to be a case-by-case basis, right? If you're working every Sunday and then all of a sudden you say, well, now, and let's say, I don't know, let's say you're Chris Wallace and you're doing Fox News Sunday. And then all of a sudden you say, well, I have just converted in my religion or whatever it may be. And I've become a born-again Christian, and I no longer want to work Sundays. And it's like, but you host Fox News Sunday. The show, unless we pre-recorded on Saturday, the show is on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Everything that you do is on Sunday. So you're just going to have to go to CNN. And we believe that's what happened. No, that's a joke. Where they would clearly accommodate your religious preferences.
Where they're atheists, so every day of the week is the same.
Well, exactly.
So you're not going to get that
CNN
off.
News Monday, this new show that they're doing. No, but something like that would be, okay, that's an undue hardship, right?
Right. Well, what and in this case, what I would, and we had said it because we had analyzed it, I said, I just don't see the court, especially when you're working part-time. Mm-hmm. And part-time, it's like, were you given specific hours?
Right.
Was it? Now, the one thing we had said, he didn't have to work Sundays. That was not a part of it. And there was no indication working Sundays would be a part of it.
Right.
So he fit in. The other point was, and we had said at the time, it's a matter of opinion and interpretation, and the Supreme Court wasn't even willing to define that precisely. Mm-hmm. They sent it back to the lower courts. Well, you sort of figured this out, but
right.
You've got to give us.
There needs to be a stronger standard for undue hardship. Now, that's basically the ruling.
Now, here's my point.
Where's the threshold?
Well, where's the threshold when it comes to baking a cake?
Right.
Or not just baking a cake, because the same liberals that signed off on this would also say it's an unreasonable accommodation if somebody, and I think it was, the gay marriage thing, you come in, they'll bake you a cake, but they won't sign it because it's against their religion.
Right.
But they will bake you a cake and they will tell you all the different places, just down the street, around the corner, a mile away, that will do it. Mm-hmm. How can those liberal justices who rule that this guy doesn't have to work Sundays, because it's an unreasonable accommodation to make him say that the baker must, or the artist or the photographer or whatever, must accommodate when they've actually been helpful and said, well, you can go to this person or that person, and they'll actually make you the cake What they
Yeah,
won't,
they're not turning away gay customers, to be clear.
Right, they're not turning away gay customers at all. It's simply we're not going to, because of our religion, write something on it.
Right.
Because then that's speech at that particular point.
Right.
Or if you're a photographer or whatever, because this is the point. These photographers would say, we do Christian weddings, or we do websites for Christian weddings.
Yeah.
No, you must accept anything that comes your way. Well, specifically, that's what we're about. We are we're doing this business based on our religion. We'll tell anybody where they can go to get their website done. We'll help them out with it, but we're not going to do that. And so when I saw it was 9-0, I understand liberal justices will have one opinion on one and completely different on the other.
Yeah.
It's not reasonable. It's not reasonable here, but it's reasonable there.
Right.
And it's like, well, I don't know how you do that, but that was the one thing I thought of. Does it show their legal hypocrisy?
No, I think that's a great point. I think it absolutely does, because that's unreasonable when there was, you look at the accommodation made by the store owner or whoever's doing the service, and, that doesn't apply there, but it applies here.
Right.
Why is that? Look, if the guy had gone to work for the Sunday-only delivery company, sorry, that would be an unreasonable accommodation. But forever, USPS, no Sunday delivery. It's still kind of weird. Actually, Father's Day. Ordered something for my dad, and sure enough, it was from Amazon because Amazon's using USPS, and they're doing a lot of Sunday deliveries. That's actually how this came about. But I ordered something for my dad, and we were at Dad's house, and his mailman pulls up. My dad's like, what is the mailman doing on a Sunday? And not just Sunday, but Father's Day. I said, he might have something for you. And but forever, there was no Sunday delivery. So for somebody to take a part-time job, USPS, it's a good gig. You want to, and even part-time, it's a good gig. And then the question is, can they accommodate? And if he's only part-time, my question, ultimately would be, aside from this case, all right, again, what we just asked, where is that threshold? Well, he's part-time, which tells me he has a full-time job. So let's say another person said, well, I only came in to work Saturdays, right?
Right.
Part-time, I only want 8 hours a week or something. Then now it's Saturdays and or Sundays. You're going to work one of those 2 days to get your 8 to 10 hours or whatever you're working part-time. Again, it just gets back to because I don't know that the court can define that threshold. What is
well, what's reasonable depends on what business you're in too.
Exactly. There is no one case that's going to set a precedent on that threshold, for that threshold.
Except if everybody quiet quits, and then just quits, then we don't have to worry about that because nobody's in the labor.
They're quiet quitting
the labor force
Monday
anymore.
through Saturday. There's no way they're not quiet quitting on Sunday. A funny story.
Can you quiet quit on Sunday as a religion and claim your religion?
I said to my uncle one time, because he was talking about, well, today is a Sunday is a day of rest, and I was staying the night with my cousin, and I said, well, you're working today. He's a pastor. He's a retired pastor now. I said, well, you're working today. He looks at me and says, I'm doing the Lord's work. I kept my mouth shut after that.
And so are we when we have to work Sunday. We're saving the world.
Yes,
Red Eye Radio, saving the world.
Yeah, you believe that.
Will the Supreme Court accept that argument? 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning and welcome. By the way, just as a note, I forgot to mention it, and I knew it, and thanks for reminding me during the break here, but the Colorado web design.
Yeah, that case and student loans
right.
are left now.
And so, but that is tomorrow. And so it'd be interesting to see how the liberal justices, when they've just said, well, they sent back the postal case, because the web designer case is about freedom of religion and also freedom of speech.
Right.
That's actually a twofer.
Right.
This case was freedom of religion and what should be a reasonable accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
Will be
Right.
interesting to see how the liberal justices rule on that one and whether there is any type of legal consistency that comes from them.
Right. I would expect they would try to separate. The difference would be a business that serves the public versus an employer who is supposed to accommodate an employee. I'm guessing they'll try and go that route. I don't even know if they will mention it.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, he is Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our app today. Listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Oh, the name of the app? Red Eye Radio app.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Try and keep it simple.
Before we get to some other things, for example, I think this is bigger than, it may be bigger, unless he changes his mind now on it, but Biden saying he's not big on abortion, and says terminations in the last 3 months have to be negotiated. We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. And, yeah, we know he was talking about the Constitution, and then he related a sentence from the Declaration of Independence yesterday. And then you see him just walking off the set.
Okay.
At MSNBC.
If that had been at Fox News, I'd go, okay, I kind of get it. It's still, all right, whatever. But it was a softball interview at MSNBC.
Well, he wasn't. It wasn't angry.
No. So yeah, that's the point. If he's walking off, going, okay, this interview's over.
Right.
At Fox News, I'm going, all right, fine. I mean, I get it. I understand what we're done here. This is him just wandering off a softball interview at MSNBC.
Yeah.
He's just kind of wandering off the set.
Right. I mean, it was the end of the interview, but when they sit there and they're saying goodbye, you don't get up and walk away.
Yeah.
You sit there until the segment's over. You go into commercial.
Right.
You know, you may let him rap. As the music's saying, there may be music playing, and they turn off the mics, and you have the friendly banter back and forth.
Well, and he looks He looks lost.
Yeah, he did
because he's just wandering. He's just. I mean, he is walking. Toward the. He's walking around her, and then behind her, but he appears to be lost.
Yeah, that was just...
It was weird.
I know, it really, really was. Also coming up, I got to do it now. I can't wait for this one because I've been waiting for it. I said it probably... remember I said 2 weeks ago, where are the stories about Kaepernick coming back? And then we joked that it's going to be 2080. The year is 2080. Colin Kaepernick still... Why aren't they giving him a chance in the NFL? Yeah. Stories back again. Colin Kaepernick determined to resume NFL career and overcome the political bias against him.
All right. Okay, fine.
Published in Sports Illustrated. And so we knew the story was going to come up. And it's like, yeah.
Has a backup quarterback ever made a comeback at the age of 35?
I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to... I mean, George Blanda was a kicker, but I'm going back to the old American Football League. I mean, he was a kicker, but he played... he was a backup quarterback, and I think he played... until he was like 48, so I don't know if he ever got cut and then got picked up again.
Yeah, right.
But that was then, and this is now.
Yeah.
You
right.
don't have,
Yeah.
even, you look at, Brady is an anomaly. He was just, something about Brady was just, you find 0.00000000000000000001% of the population of the world that could do what he did.
Yeah.
So
I like the. I think this is the original headline. They changed it, I think, at Outkick.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick makes delusional claim about NFL return. But when you click on the story, it says Colin Kaepernick still trying to play in the NFL, claims he's viewed as an elite player in quotes, in quotation marks, at over there at Outkick. But that's I like the original headline better. But it's what he's doing is he's making the protest. The headline should be Colin Kaepernick protests once again. Teams aren't going to. I'm going to prove that all the teams are racist and biased because I'm going to announce my return and none of them are going to hire me.
Yeah,
he's setting up the protest.
Yeah.
This is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's a professional protester.
Well, it was we loved it. What was it, a week ago, 10 days ago, when he came out and said, well, yeah, my book, of course, I had to get advice from communists and social and Marxists because, what I believe can't exist.
Yeah.
We can't have true equality unless we have a Marxist society. And I was so happy that he said that because, remember, we got some pushback back, those years ago, 2015, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was it 2015 or 2016?
I think it was 2015.
No, maybe it was 2016 because Trump wasn't president yet, I don't believe. Or was it 2017? I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Well, whenever it was. Mm-hmm. We don't need to go through the minutia of it. You and I said immediately what's being lost in all of this because people, he just is doing, no, he's a Marxist. And we said it back then, and we got some blowback on it. You guys are reading way too much into it.
Yeah, the kneeling was in the 2016 season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are reading too much into it. Well, we weren't. We weren't reading too much into it.
By the way, many people believe that he single-handedly cost Clinton the election. Throw that out for liberty. Did you ever hear that? Did you ever hear that? Was the reason Trump won is because of Colin Kaepernick? Did you ever? I never heard.
And the guys on Red Eye are pretty reliable. I disagree with them, but they're pretty reliable.
Yeah,
they won't argue things that are lies.
I didn't know he was to blame.
Except the day before they go on vacation.
Yeah.
And they're drunk on the air.
We're just lob stuff out. Yeah, we're drunk on bad coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what you're hearing is total sobriety.
Yeah.
Shows you how insane sobriety can be.
Yeah. This is what happens.
But yeah, and there's so much Bobulinski back in the news. I love the headline. Some of the commentary yesterday on one headline: New York City Mayor Eric Adams compares Holocaust survivor to plantation owner. And I'm sitting there thinking, it was like some of the things on social media. You better understand who you're calling a plantation owner when you make that in a public setting, and you hope to God it's not a Holocaust survivor. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, so we'll get to that. The auto industry calls Biden's emission goals unreasonable, and a whole bunch of other. There's just so much out there. But I just wanted to hit one thing because I thought it was interesting what you said about the postman. By the way, I got to watch that movie again. The postman Supreme Court decision there, because I'd said, we talked about the legal hypocrisy, and you said that, well, probably the liberals will try to say there's a difference between an employee and an employer making a reasonable accommodation. They'll try to make this case than a business making a reasonable accommodation.
Sounds like exactly. I can expect that from a liberal.
And so my thoughts were more of questions, which would be, well, and I'm not. By the way, I'm not asking you because you're saying this is what you think
not
that they
my
will try to
opinion.
do.
I think this is the way they would go.
Yeah, because the question would be, well, how do you do that? I mean, where does it exist in the Constitution that a employer must make a more reasonable accommodation than a business making a reasonable accommodation to a customer? Where is that? Is freedom of speech and then adding freedom of religion and then adding a freedom of speech, is it different between a customer and a business owner? Because you're not talking about a publicly owned company. You're talking about a privately owned company with an individual. Mm-hmm. And that would be the interest. I'm just making I'm not arguing with you because you're not making the point. Mm-hmm. It's just those are the questions that I would challenge them with.
Well,
why is there a difference?
Because if you look at previous cases where a smaller business has religious rights, right? If you look at the the Michaels case, and that those closely held beliefs apply there, then that to me would be the legal precedent, because you're talking like with the web design case, which the decision is expected sometime Friday morning. Would be extremely rare, by the way, for them to go into July with any decisions, and there are only 2 decisions left, that one and student loans. But if they, when that comes down, I can see, and I'm guessing that's going to be 5463, because the web designer isn't saying, well, we won't serve anyone. It's about what we're going to do with our art. Right. And the question is that protected? Is that protected for them in terms of expression? And that's where I think the liberals get into and say, well, no, you must express something. And think about this mindset, though, because it applies everywhere. It used to be about acceptance, right? Then it was about, no, you need to march in our parade. Now silence is violence. So if your mindset that silence is violence, you're not marching in our parade. Not only do you need to allow us to have the parade, you need to be marching in the parade. You need to be the champion for our cause. Then you certainly would apply that in a legal setting, and that's what I would expect from them, is that, well, they don't have the right to do that.
But that would be complete legal hypocrisy.
Exactly.
From this last decision, even though they didn't make the decision on a reasonable accommodation, mm-hmm. They didn't look at it and said, okay, they did say it's unreasonable accommodation that the post office had against the worker.
That's why it was really surprising that it was 9-0.
Yeah,
because I expected at least one of the, if not 2 or 3, all 3 of the liberal justices to come back and say, well, wait a minute, no. Because if we start this, then every employee who has been working on a Sunday can then claim this religious exemption and force the employer to make those accommodations. Now, where they get the walk is that they sent it back down to the lower courts, and they didn't set any precedent here, and they didn't draw the line in terms of what is reasonable or unreasonable for an employer. And so they kind of skated on that, but still I'm surprised that the liberal justices didn't have a dissenting, not even one of them had a dissenting that said something to the effect of, well, wait a minute, we can't do that because everybody then, and nothing would be running on Sunday. But then you got to keep in mind, it's also the same mindset that stores shouldn't be open on Thanksgiving Day, right? Liberals have been screaming well, you shouldn't force them to work on Thanksgiving Day. You shouldn't be, forcing this, and you shouldn't. Well, cops have to work on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas and New Year's Day and Sunday. But this is the mindset of the liberal. The liberal group
Right.
has basically come out and said, essentially, your religion doesn't apply when it comes to a business, and that's been their.
And nowhere in the Constitution does it. Which,
right.
Again, when you start talking about reasonable accommodation, it's based on individual opinions as to what you view as reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, when you look at reasonable, we have talked about the radical transgender activist movement, that all reason is gone, but they don't believe that. They believe reason is telling a lie.
Yeah, right.
And so when you look at anything, what is a reasonable, accommodation, or what is, and again, that depends on the business you're in. This does not set an overall precedent at all.
No.
It is the precedent sets is for this particular case, and a definition that every person that you ask would have a different opinion on.
I think that could be the reason why none of the liberal justices could write legally that it was unreasonable for the employer. I think they had to, in this case, because you can't, where do you legally draw that line? Case by case. Because if you look at this one, the employee walked in, gets the job, likely sought that job because they weren't going to work on Sundays. And then they started working on Sundays.
Right.
So is it unreasonable for the employer to make accommodations for this employee? That's not unreasonable at all.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Interesting because we tomorrow is the student loan debt transfer a case probably will come down from the Supreme Court. The only way I see that not being defeated is if they say no one had cause. And if no one had cause, I don't think they would have agreed to hear it in the in the first place.
Yeah, if they didn't have standing, I think they would.
What I say, I'm standing. Yeah, thank you for using the correct terminology.
I think it wouldn't be there.
Right.
Yeah. And those would be the two cases: the web design company and the student loan case. And both of them are pretty big. I'm really anxious. Normally on Friday, especially starting a vacation, I go home and get a few hours of sleep right after the show, which is rare. I only do it on Friday or if I'm starting a vacation because I'm trying to get things done later in the day. And those opinions will start hitting fairly early. So I'll have to get a short nap.
You know, I wake up to, it's like 8:30. I wake up and the first thing I see on Twitter is Jonathan Turley.
Yeah.
All right, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And he counts down. And yesterday was, I got a speech to do today.
Yeah.
Roberts has to accommodate me better. He actually put that in. Roberts isn't accommodating me.
Right. Yeah.
But that's what I normally see when Supreme Court decisions come down.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up, it's like, oh, Turley's the first thing that comes up on Twitter.
Yeah. But, those two decisions will likely come down sometime today.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want, if you can't listen live overnight. All right, I almost fainted when I read this story yesterday. Are you ready?
No. Okay, now I'm ready.
The United Auto Workers, the largest auto industry union representing more than 400,000 working and middle-class members, is withholding support for Joe Biden over his administration's actively funding the race to the bottom with the massive effort towards electric vehicles. In an internal memo, UAW President Shawn Fain said the union will not be endorsing Biden until major commitments are made to protect jobs and high wages for American auto workers, both of which have been threatened by the White House's EV push. The unions have finally understood that when the government comes in and says, we want you to produce a product that, number one, the American public doesn't want. Once you produce a product that the American public doesn't want, can't afford, and our company would not be selling because they can't make a profit on it, that will mean eventually the destruction of our union. My God, the union leaders, are you telling me they've actually connected the dots after all these years?
Yeah, I guess.
We go all the way back to 2008. When the West Virginia coal miners endorsed Obama after he let them know his goal was to bankrupt the coal industry.
Yeah.
And they endorsed him. We went, what? So 15 years later, the UAW, if you're going to make it so the company that we work for is selling a product that the customer doesn't want, that the customer can't afford, and it can't make a profit, then eventually our jobs are going to be gone because the only reason the company's agreeing to it is because you're pumping them full of taxpayer dollars right now, and that's not going to last forever. And even with the taxpayer dollars, they're losing.
Yeah.
This cannot work.
No.
We want to see national leadership have our back on this before we make any commitment. Hey, learn to code.
Yeah, come on, Jack. Serious.
No
dash,
joke. .. SOS.
Well, look, remember Gattelfinger back also around the same time? UAW, was it 2008, 2009, somewhere in there? We need the automotive OEMs to be profitable. We need them to be profitable. And this was after they conceded on The union conceded on something. I forget what it was, but they were like, look, in order to maintain the longevity of the union itself, we're going to have a more profitable company.
Yeah.
That's how it works. If a union is going to exist in the private sector, then it needs to be in a profitable industry and attached to profitable companies within that industry. Full stop.
And as we know, that's the original, when you look at, for example, you look back into the, some of the great, what are looked at as the great union movements of the United States. You can look at, for example, the labor leader George Meany. You can look at FDR.
Yeah.
All of them were against government unions.
Yeah.
They were all against government unions. Why? Government doesn't make a profit and unions exist because the company isn't sharing the profits with them in a fair, what they view as a fair way. So they want negotiations for wages, and they know they have more clout if everybody's in a union than doing it individually. That's basically the concept of a union. And the union concept cannot exist with what Democrats want, which is to produce products that the consumer doesn't want, can't afford, and does not make a profit for the company, even with the current massive subsidies from taxpayers.
Right.
Can't do it. Union leadership finally went, after 15 years, maybe the coal miners union did the wrong thing there. And, the union leaders are finally thinking, that might affect our mega six-figure salaries if we don't do something.
You think?
All right, I'm not going to complain. At least it's a movement. At least it's a recognition from the unions that companies have to make profits.
Well, no, I mean, the whole comment by Gettelfinger back in the day didn't really gain much attention. We gave it attention then because it was accurate. And it was one time that union leadership then was being honest. And that's the way it has to work. You want those profits to soar. And you can fight for the benefits and the greater pay. You can fight for a number of things, but if the company's not there because they can't make a profit, then there's nothing to fight for.
Then it also came out that the other side went after the federal government. Yeah. The trade group representing nearly all major automakers offered its harshest criticism at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's aggressive proposal to sharply cut vehicle emissions through 2032, saying it is neither reasonable nor achievable. Well, that never stopped a good liberal.
Yeah.
The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which represents General Motors, Volkswagen, Toyota Motors, and others, called the proposal a de facto battery electric vehicle mandate. The EPA proposed in April cutting vehicle emissions by 56% over 2026 levels, forecasting the result in 60% of new vehicles by 2030 being electric and 67% by 2032. EPA standards cannot be met without substantially increasing the cost of all vehicles, reducing consumer choice, and giving us a disadvantage of major portions of the U.S. population and territory, the group said. Because that's what they're finally looking at it. They finally woken up. Why? Look at the Ford numbers. One of the good things is Ford, basically saying, here's what this division is doing money-wise.
Yeah.
So with all of the subsidies that are given, to electric vehicles, they still can't make a profit. And the cost of normal vehicles, the electric trucks, the research, development of electric trucks, and everything going on with the electric trucks and the selling of electric trucks only exist because of the high costs that people are willing to pay for gasoline-powered and diesel-powered vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't exist.
Right.
Can't happen. And so they're looking at the fact that if the government forces them to 67% of vehicles being, being electric, and what is it now? 3%, 4%? Well,
yeah.
nobody can afford electric vehicles right now, if only the well-off can afford electric vehicles right now, you increase it from 3 or 4% to 67% by 2032, and every single major automobile manufacturer goes belly up.
Yeah.
They're dead.
Right.
They're gone.
Right.
And finally, the unions realize that. It's gotten so radical where the unions have said,
well, because we're at a point where, again, this is the reality. It's not the abstract of, yeah, we're going to save the planet, because the unions went along with that for the longest time. As we said, as you started out, 2008, West Virginia Coal Miners Union. Oh yeah, we're gonna endorse the guy who's going to take our jobs, and he did just that. Then in 2012, they didn't endorse anyone. They wouldn't even go as far as to endorse the guy. It was Romney then. He didn't win. But they didn't go as far as to endorse the guy that would try and preserve their jobs. They just didn't endorse Obama any longer. They didn't endorse anyone. And it's likely because their membership dues dropped dramatically because of their shrinkage in the number of union members. I would have to look that up to be accurate there, but I'm guessing that might apply. It's just stupid. Then you look at it and go, what was the deal they were going to do with Colombia? Remember that? And they said, well, we can't do the deal because we can't get into the whole free trade thing. And it was going to be something that benefited the unions because it was going to be about the unions producing something that would be exported to Colombia.
Oh, no. That was the Colombia Free Trade Agreement.
Right, yes.
And it was...
But it was going to benefit the U.S. jobs more.
Yes, it would have benefited... because what was happening...
Most of the production, a lot of the production was going to be here.
What was happening is because the United States deal with Colombia because of the drug trade was to make it where they put tariffs on all American products going into Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was because of that, it was complete disaster.
Right.
I mean, it just killed and Colombia said, could you please take the tariffs off American products?
Right. Which would have opened up the flow of American products going into Colombia.
Which would create more union jobs in the United States.
Yeah, that was it.
And the unions had to be against it because they couldn't be for anything that was labeled a free trade agreement.
It's just stupid.
Yeah. That's going back that's almost 15 years ago, isn't it? It's a long time when that's.
But you got to and with the whole with the whether it's the coal miners union or no, we're saving the planet. You're not saving your jobs.
And what happened was because you put the tariffs on, any product that was sold in Colombia was so dang expensive because they could raise it all the way up. So it was hurting the economy. And so the Colombian government finally realized, well, we need to have these cheaper American products coming in. Number one, they'll help the consumer, and they'll help the consumer so the consumer does better and has a better quality of life, and it will force our companies to be much more competitive, which will also lower the cost of domestic products across the board. So they realized, and that's the interesting thing, it was the posterior backwards of how the liberals look at a free trade agreement.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, no, this is the real world consequences. You're looking at it in a delusional world. And when you actually put tariffs on things coming into your country, that means that your own products that can be way over cost. Basically, you can set up a monopoly, and that means the product isn't as good and it costs more. Right. That's what happens when you have a monopoly.
Yep.
And that's what happened in Colombia. And then the unions in the United States had to be against it, even though it would have benefited them because the labeling of it was free trade.
Yeah.
We live in a nation with a lot of idiots.
Insane.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Coming up following the top of the hour, we'll hear from James Comer, who was on Fox News yesterday, really laying out a lot of things and the accusations he's making. You know, he's out there saying, yeah, the president's compromised.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really getting interesting. Bobulinski popped up yesterday, found out that he and his lawyer had contacted the Hunter Biden grand jury saying, we're ready to testify. Never heard back.
Yeah.
They had no interest in, think about this, no interest in Bobulinski at all. None. And Comer said, we're calling everybody. And the other thing is they're looking now at, as we played the audio the other day where he said, we're going to look at credit cards. We're going to look at stocks.
Yeah.
We're
right.
looking at anything where money could be laundered here, and we're going to bring everybody in.
Yep.
And so it's like, this is interesting. He was asked the question, about what about the tapes that the Burisma president has? Can you get them? And he sort of sidestepped that question. But my thing would be, well, have you talked to them? Have you talked to the president of Burisma?
Right.
Is he willing to testify?
Exactly. I want to know if those recordings still exist.
Yeah.
That he allegedly made.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we're Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hang on. There's a bug flying around me.
Get it?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's flying around here, so.
Yeah.
It might be a skeeter.
I had a fly in my truck. But he had gas money. So that was good.
All right, so I think yesterday the Democrats got the biggest scare from Biden that on any type of issue out there, or his cognitive abilities, or the scandal, the allegations of bribery now. Mm-hmm. Something bigger happened yesterday that scared the daylights out of Democrats. Mm-hmm. And it was the president saying he's not really big on abortion, and that terminations in the last 3 months have to be negotiated.
Yep. My question is, there are a lot of reasons why it's a non-starter on Capitol Hill, because none of them, even Democrats, want to get into the whole starting the process of talking about where life begins or defining that as law. But I wondered, well, did the Democrats know it was a non-starter to begin with because everybody inside the Beltway, including everybody on Capitol Hill, knew where Biden stood? Now, he's never been vocal about it, not like yesterday.
No. And so there's a huge legal problem that the Democrats know they have if they've got the guy who is their leader stating that the last 3 months have to be negotiated.
Yeah.
Now, it takes away a political argument and it challenges all legal arguments out there. It's going to be a defining moment in any legal argument that we have from now until when the world doesn't exist anymore. And as you said, when life begins. But as soon as the president said yesterday that the last 3 months have to be negotiated, it means he believes that it is a life inside the womb. You've seen Democrats now since Dobbs last year come out and say, no, abortion till birth, abortion till birth, abortion till birth, abortion till birth. The American public isn't there.
No.
And as we've stated, that takes away the one political argument that it's a woman's body and she can do whatever she wants. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a birthing person's body and they can do whatever they want.
How dare you?
And that wipes away that argument. And I know because after Dobbs passed, I had 5 different conversations with pro-choice women. 5. And every one of them, when they said it's a woman's body and nobody has any business in a woman's body, oh, so you're for abortion till birth. Well, no. I think in the later stages, well, then it's not about a woman's body.
At some point, it's not about the woman's body, then you're agreeing.
And the look I got from every single one of them was complete confusion. It's like, oh. It was the realization that I've never taken my mind past the point that it's a woman's body. Nobody ever threw at me, oh, okay, then you believe in abortion towards birth. Well, no, not the last trimester. Well, then it's not about a woman's body. It's about when life begins. And that's where the majority of Americans are when it comes to abortion. The president coming out and stating it means that the leader of the Democratic Party believes that life begins, a human life begins in the womb. They can't have that because the fear is, as we learn more about technology, that if that's the belief of the population, because the radical left, which is the Democratic Party, they believe it actually doesn't matter whether it's a life or not.
Right.
Whether it's a human life to them, they don't care. It's the inconvenience towards the woman that is the only consideration. And that's not where the majority of Americans are. And that's the weak spot. And that's why Democrats terrified yesterday when the president came out and said that.
Yeah.
Because they cannot have an argument if they say, as they've been saying, no, I'm for abortion, no matter what, all the way up to birth. Right. Then they never have to argue about when it becomes a life.
Yeah.
Soon as you say, last trimester and the president's last 3 months have to be negotiated, you're admitting that life begins in the womb, and that starts whittling away at the Democrats' arguments, both political and legal. They can't have that. They know that. They know that's the weak spot.
Yep.
And that's why you have a lot of governors, because when you have, I think it was it Florida that passed, was it the 6 week or 15-week bill? I forgot which one they passed. And you had some conservatives come down and say, no, it's either abortion is banned, and it's like, no, what you don't understand is you keep putting restrictions on it. That's what you do. You save the number of lives you can get, but you keep moving in that direction, because moving in that direction is where we get the ultimate victory.
Right.
And that's a debate going on between conservatives right now. All or nothing. It's like, no, we're saving some lives. We're not going to get the all right now. We may get the all with technology when people realize, oh, my gosh, it is a life.
Right.
15 years from now, 10 years from now. It's moving in that direction, as we've seen. More Americans now accept restrictions on abortion in the last trimester than in a long, long time.
Yeah, politically, it's still going to be, I think, next to impossible, if not impossible altogether, to define exactly where the life begins. Again, politically.
Right.
It's not what you believe. It's where they would vote, what on Capitol Hill they would vote for in terms of defining exactly where that would be.
Well, no, I mean, that's the point. That's the confusion of the American public that they're wrestling with right now.
Mm-hmm.
They know it begins in the womb.
Right.
They just don't know when.
Exactly.
And that's the same with Biden, apparently. I mean, there are some, pro-abortion people that don't care. They don't care whether life or not. The woman gets to abort it up to birth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there. The American public isn't there, and I don't see them going there. And that's, as we talked about before, that is the conundrum for the American public. They know it begins in the womb, but they don't know where. And there are a significant portion of people that believe life begins in the womb, but we have to be considerate of the woman early on in a pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But they even feel guilty about that because they're not sure when it begins.
Right. That's why you can't have lawmakers decide it, because their constituents haven't decided that.
Yeah, they haven't, no. And that's what the Supreme Court said. And when I explain to every one of these women what the Supreme Court did, because I said, is the Supreme Court radical for what they did? Absolutely. Well, here's what they did. Is this radical? They said, we can't define what it is. The American public can't define what it is. It's not up to us. We're not dictators. The people of the United States, and right now that would be through the states right now, most of the states, they have to decide through their legislature, when it begins, because that hasn't been decided in law, and we don't get to do that. We're not. So, and I told these, and it was interesting because I said, you know how the Democrats said that the Republicans are fascist? They're the opposite of fascist. They said, you get to decide.
Mm.
It's the Democrats who say, no, the Supreme Court should decide. I go, why should the Supreme Court decide where life begins?
Right.
Why shouldn't it be the public?
Right.
We have in every other aspect of every law, the public decides through their elected representatives, and even the constitutional process is through the elected representatives, through the people. So why does the Supreme Court get to write new law? Every single one of them agreed.
Yeah.
And they said, well, thanks so much. You helped change my mind on it, or you made me think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the last thing. My discussion I had with those 5 women is the exact discussion the Democrats don't ever want to have, and Biden just brings it to the forefront.
Yeah. Right. Well, in a big way, it was one of those moments where he clearly didn't read the room politically.
No.
And the room being the party. I'm not big on abortion. That last 3 months, that has to be worked out. It's like he just lobbed that out there. It's like telling the Easter Bunny he's running again. Listen, between me and you, Easter Bunny, I'm running. I mean, I know Al Roker was there, but it was really the Easter Bunny who he was confiding in. We all know it. And I think he just lobbed it out there the same way. I'm not big on abortion. What? What? What did he just say?
That's a great point. Just saying that, because that's the quote.
Yeah.
I'm not big on abortion.
Yeah.
What are you're the head of the abortion party. What are you talking about?
You need to get big, Jack. Or however they would say it to him. Come on, man. Serious.
Look.
I mean, this is where they are as a party on abortion.
Not having cognitive ability, the allegations and the evidence piling up about bribes, they don't care about that. When he said, I'm not big on abortion, Democrats in Congress went, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, no, I mean, you could feel it. And I thought to myself, I'm waiting for it because nobody can say anything. Here's the problem. You can't come out and say something about it. Now, you're going to be asked about it, I would think, because here's the thing. You're a liberal activist reporter, right? So you're out there, and then your head's reverberating from it. You're still trying to, what's the, Get the Easter Bunny on the phone. And then and then next thing you know, you're over there, you're talking to a Chuck Schumer or somebody, and then because now you're going into emergency mode. Wait a minute, hold on a second. That he can't just say that. We need to know that we've got, people on Capitol Hill. Again, if you're an activist, liberal activist reporter. So we need to talk to Schumer or any of the top liberals on Capitol Hill and ask them, well, hold on a second. Do you stand with the president? What about you? Are you big on abortion? Are you, they need to shore up the support for the agenda.
And right now, at the anniversary of the Dobbs decision, for him to say, I'm not big on abortion.
I'm not big on abortion. By the way, I'm leaving. I'm going to Camp David. Bye. What? It's like he couldn't even wait for the interview to end completely on MSNBC. I got to get out of here. No,
frankly, there aren't so many things I know he blurts out stuff. That blew me away yesterday. It was one of those moments where he just lobbed it out there exactly like his announcement that he was running again, which the majority of his party did not want to hear at the time. I think Colbert had a joke about it. I mean, it was clear from a liberal like Colbert, and because they still don't want him to run. And after yesterday, I'm not big on abortion. I wonder if some reporter, maybe, I don't know, Pete Ducey could just, get into a rabbit suit and Biden would answer questions from him.
Exactly. Just follow him around. What?
Hopping behind him.
Like say nothing. Say nothing. Just have a little basket. Him. Just hopping behind him.
With a pen and a notebook in his hand, asking the president questions. What the hell? Why are you doing that? Well, he wouldn't announce to anybody he was running for president. Then the Easter Bunny hangs around. He starts talking to him. So I figure if he likes talking to the Easter Bunny.
Well, he'd turn around for the photo op. He wouldn't even put the two together. He would just turn around and start doing the photo op. I love the Easter Bunny. Me and Corn Pop used to hang out with the Easter Bunny every Sunday, not just Easter. I can't tell you what was in my basket.
Has the White House clarified those comments? I didn't see that.
No. On the abortion comments?
On the abortion comments. I didn't see that.
How do you make that jive? How do you make that work? Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I'll defer those questions
to the general counsel.
To the general counsel. I defer those questions.
We're answering. We're out here today for the press conference. We're answering no questions about anything. They're going to get to that point. There are no. We'll give you an answer, but it's not going to be to the question that you're asking. If it's on this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic. Oh, basically all topics.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It was just one that lobbed, and everybody's going, What did he do? What did he do? What did he do? What did he say? And I really think everyone is still numb from it. I think it's still in everybody's mind, especially on the left right now.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara.
I mean, what's next? Later today, I'm not really for forgiving student loans.
Yeah. Pay your debts. I did.
Yeah. I think we need to cut taxes for the rich.
I've done the wrong thing. We need to secure the border.
You know what?
I'm sending troops to the border now.
I think I want to build a wall. He just starts lobbing all of these things out. I think a wall would work.
When you actually read the quote here, here's the quote. Now listen to this, because this is mind-boggling. Democrats are freaking over this.
Yeah.
The next 3 months is between, a woman and her family. That's
Okay.
That's first 3 months of pregnancy.
Right.
Biden continued. The next 3 months is between a woman and her doctor. The last 3 months have to be negotiated because you can't, unless you are in a position where your physical health is at stake, you can't do it. End of quote.
That was a line. That was a boundary. Full stop. You can't do it.
And remember, there's only one reason why the Democrats believe that they can win House seats and Senate seats and maybe the presidency. And that's the abortion issue. On the issues, not personalities with Trump or whatever. I'm not getting into, but just the issue. The issue for Democrats is one that they believe they can win. They know they can't win on the border. They know they can't win on critical race theory. They know they can't win an election based on the radical transgender activist movement.
Right.
They know they can't win on inflation. They know they can't win on the economy. The only thing that they believe that they can win on is abortion, and the president just undercut that.
Well, he just right there just said,
Yep.
After the second trimester, no. Wow. Who's the last Democrat that said that? I can't remember.
I can't remember. We're sorry for the silence.
No, we're both kind of looking around. I honestly can't remember.
I can't tell you the last
and
Democrat.
he's the head of the party right now.
Yep.
The Bonus Show.
Tri Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara.
I'm thinking we need to eliminate corporate taxes. He just starts rambling, lobbying all these things.
This would be Biden you're talking about.
Biden. He's just going to start dropping these things.
Issue-wise, he couldn't have said anything worse than he said yesterday, and it was actually the detail of it.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because we talk about the cognitive problems where he can't keep a coherent sentence,
right.
And then he keeps totally coherent saying in the first 3 months of a pregnancy should be between a woman and her family. Second 3 months, woman and her doctor. Last 3 months, you have to negotiate because you can't, unless it's the health of the woman at stake, you just can't do it.
Right.
My God, I was like, this is just, everybody was quiet, and that's how you knew there was shock going through, how do we answer this? The president just came out. As you notice, and I don't know if it hasn't been really publicized, but you have had over the last month or so, Democrat after Democrat come out and make it clear they're for abortion till birth.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew, they understand the fact of the weakness of their argument, both politically and legally, unless they do that. I still think it's weak legally. I believe it's, I believe it's weak across the board. They recognized that it's weak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so him doing that just blew me away.
No,
that was actually the bombshell of the day. You know, the Bobulinski thing. I mean, we've been talking so much about it, but Bobulinski coming out and saying that his lawyer basically saying, or not basically, but saying, no, yeah, we went to the Hunter Biden grand jury, said we're ready to testify. They never called us. I mean, that was a little bit of a bombshell because it keeps adding more. But this one came out of complete, I won't say left field, moderate right field when he said that.
Well, because when the decision came out last year, it really sent the left on this whole new mission of, okay, now we've got to essentially find the abortion sanctuary states, right? Mm-hmm. We got to find, and we got to battle against the states that are outlawing it. We got to, it's a renewed agenda on abortion. And leading up to 24, your best bet is to say nothing. Say that I'm confident that my colleagues on Capitol Hill will be able to address this, and that's what I'm urging them to do. And just leave it. You don't even go. But he drew a line.
He did.
A boundary that said after the second trimester, no. Yeah. Oh, I don't know, but he's not going to. You know what? He might be uninvited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner next year. That'll get you uninvited. Ask Trump.
I'm telling you, that was mind-boggling.
It was wild.
The other thing I was thinking of was with the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. Does that kill reparations? Because reparations, if you're actually the victim, for example, the Japanese reparations were for those people that were interned.
Yes.
And so you could say there was damage done by the government to you.
Right.
The Supreme Court, based on the affirmative action ruling yesterday, would strike down reparations.
Yeah.
As being probably arbitrary. Because if you look at it, if you look at reparations, you could say, for example, I mean, I was thinking, if you look at in California, gold rush time and everything else, if you look at that time, you could sit there and say, well, if you're going to give reparations to blacks, you have to give it to ancestors of anybody who was from China who was working over here at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, any argument you can make to do it, but you're not talking about anybody that was directly affected by that.
Or you're directly responsible for it.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the other thing, too.
Yeah.
Right, and so you're making the case, for enormous amount of sums, and I thought about that yesterday. I said, I think this dooms reparations, whether it's a shot across the bow, I don't know. I don't believe it was, because they look at one issue at the time. I mean, it was sort of like you heard AOC talking about, how come the Supreme Court didn't strike down legacy admissions into colleges?
Yeah,
and
right.
She had to be reminded, because that's not before the Supreme Court of the United States.
Right.
The Supreme Court doesn't say, well, we believe this is unfair. What else is unfair?
Yeah, they don't just start. Yeah, you know what else
is unfair?
Yeah, it's just in the opinion. And another thing. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
There has to be a case before the court.
And so she had to be educated on it a little bit. And so I don't believe it was a shot across the bow. I mean, you just wonder politically whether it was.
Well,
whether it was viewed politically that now look, reparations are dead anyway.
Yeah,
they're going through. This is busy work. They're going through the motions, the Democrats, to pretend they care.
Well,
but
and
nobody's getting $5 million.
It's generational too. You and I have been doing this long enough to see that. All right, it comes about once every generation. The conversation comes back, and so now you look at it, and you had some activists saying, "Well, no, it should be $200 million." And then people are going, well, yeah, but we can't do that. And then that opened the door to the question, well, then how much can we afford? Well, wait a minute. We actually can't afford this. If it were, going to cost, what was it, the taxpayers, those who would be paying for it, would be paying, what was it, $600,000 apiece?
In San Francisco, it would have been $600,000 and I believe $80,000 per household.
Yeah. And so then it was like, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, we can't do that. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but how are we going to fund it? And it gets back to other similar items of what agenda items, not similar, but other agenda items where they were looking at it and saying, well, we're going to do this. Oh, you're going to do a single payer system in California. well, not even California could do it, because when they tried to write in a funding mechanism, or when one of the lawmakers brought up the fact that there was no funding mechanism in that bill for a single-payer system in California, then he got threats.
Yeah, he got death threats.
And so they understand, even in Vermont, Bernie's territory, I mean, it's Bernie land, and they knew they couldn't get it done. And why is that? Because you have to talk about the funding. You have to talk about how you're going to pay for it. And then once you start talking about that, everything goes away.
Right.
Because there's no way to get there.
The only way you can pay for it is debt financing on a single-payer system.
Yep.
So that's why they want it national.
Yep, exactly.
And they even knew, well, we can't afford to we can't afford to do it. But yeah, it was when I thought about the reparations yesterday, and I guess California, they have the last reparations meeting. And that's not going to go. I mean, Newsom, that was still the funniest when Newsom said,
"That's not about."
What do you think? Well, it's not all about money. What do you mean? It's the only thing it's about is money.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Well, that's
it's like
wait. I mean, the weekend's not here yet. We got all day Friday before, the week is fully over. What if Biden just lobs out tomorrow? I'm not big on reparations.
Well, if I'm a liberal in California, and you say we need to stop the damage that has been done because of bigotry and racism, my first thing would say, well, instead of spending $200 billion or $300 billion, or what was it, 30-something trillion, whatever, before we spend that, why don't we spend $100 billion for charter schools and have competition to the public schools so we can educate?
Right.
Because education is what gets you there, and education at the younger ages is what gets you to success. Because education is not just about what you learn in math, whatever.
Right.
It's the fact of the learning process gives you the incentive and the wanting to learn more.
Exactly.
And the ability to know you can accomplish things, and you can't be held back because of your color, because you've got it inside of your head. That's where your value is, and that's where you can be productive and in the world. And so it has to start at the younger ages to do that. Or if you're going to spend, if I'm a liberal, I'm going to say, well, spend that money to have competition from, from a monopoly school system that's run by the teachers union that are trying to benefit themselves, and let's benefit the kids. Like remember the superintendent of Washington when she quit?
She said the unions don't care about the kids. It's clear.
They don't care about the kids. That's why I had to finally come to the conclusion, and I had to come to the conclusion, do I care about the kids or do I care about the unions?
Well, that's it. And it starts, that process starts with parents having the freedom of a choice.
Yep.
So the levels of opportunity there, and it's something that that Charles Payne on Fox News was alluding to yesterday after the affirmative action decision came down, and he was saying, look, we need to focus more on the actual education our children are getting. So it's a moot point when they reach college age and start thinking about college that our kids are going to have more choices because they have a greater education all along the way. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the essence of his message, which is, I think, exactly what it should be. It's exactly why conservatives have been pushing for this kind of choice. And parents, it's not just conservatives. It's parents all over America. When you open the door to that conversation, parents were saying, yes, give us a choice. But the unions would shut it down. The Obama administration even wanted to go after the states that were going to do that. And their excuse was, well, the kids left behind in the public schools, there wouldn't be enough money to fund the public schools. Because the competition works? Because the process works?
Well, wait a minute. If there's not money for that, there's not money for reparations.
Exactly.
If I'm a liberal, I'm making that argument. We're going to spend tons of money anyway.
Right.
Spend the money on the schools.
Right.
Because that's the key to success.
That competition then will mean, and what will it mean? It will mean then all of those parents are working harder to get those kids into those schools, and ultimately they all get an opportunity at a much better education.
I'm reading here that the final meeting occurred just over a month after the 9-member panel officially recommended that the California State Legislature allocate funds for reparations. According to the task force recommendations, certain qualifying Black Californians could receive up to $1.2 million in reparations. I can't wait. Get this thing done.
Oh, yeah.
Get it to the legislature. Get it to the governor's desk.
Let's go. Yep. Come on. What are we waiting on?
Reality?
Yeah. Right.
Fiscal reality?
Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, James Comer on Fox News yesterday, letting out a ton of information, saying the president is compromising, getting more specific on where he believes the president has been compromised in the past. So really interesting is that thing. Every single day something comes out, then the Bobulinski thing. Every single day something comes out. Nothing ever goes in the direction of justifying what the FBI and the Justice Department did.
Right. No, it doesn't.
Nothing ever. There's not, since this whole thing started, and we look for those things. It's like, okay, what's the argument back? What's the argument back? What's the argument back? There isn't any except the generic thing. We're insulted that you would think that we don't apply justice equally.
Yeah, right.
You need to shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
and then there comes the whistleblower. I did see though. There was some analysis talking about how one article was in the New York Times, how they covered it. What Republicans say are whistleblowers.
Oh, yeah.
And they're putting them in quotes.
No, I did see that. Yeah. And it's like these so-called whistleblowers. Well, no. Nobody at the Justice Department is saying, well, but that goes in line. I guess that's the next logical step with the idea of, oh, this is hearsay. Oh, hold on. You're not in court.
Well, they're looking. You can tell, though, they're looking for. We were saying they don't have anything. They got to be looking for something. And when I saw that yesterday, I said, see, this is how hard they're trying. They're trying to discredit them. How can we? We've got nothing. How do we discredit them? Call them the Republicans' so-called whistleblowers.
Yeah, so-called whistleblowers. Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and everywhere else. We're Red Eye Radio. Good morning.
Yeah, we are.
He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What a day it was yesterday. That's the one thing. I was talking, I think it was my dad, probably about noon yesterday. He said, how are things going? I went, show's done.
Yeah.
That was done very
That
quickly.
happens a lot lately.
Yeah. Like, don't even get through half the day.
Where there's so much.
I wake up, I look at my phone and say, oh, show's done.
Yeah. Yeah. It is absolutely insane.
We haven't, think about this. 3 hours into the show, we haven't even talked about the Bidens and bribery or anything.
I know.
Just that's how much news there's been.
Well, look, you couldn't pay me to talk about bribery.
You could pay me. Because I'm the McNamara's are the best at it.
It's not about the money.
We're the best at what we do, and it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
But don't you dare cut back on what you were going to pay me. But it's not about the money.
Yeah, you better get it to me quick, but it's not about the money.
It's not about the money. It's the principle.
Yeah.
We're principled bribe takers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about the money, but you better get that money to me quick.
Was not the best this week, though.
Oh, no. It
on,
was...
on The View. On the View.
Yeah.
And this is a story about a father and his love for his son.
Mm-hmm.
This scandal is about a father trying to help his son. Well, you know something? Maybe in the midst of it, the father should have said, hey, if the father is completely innocent in all of this, the father should have said, why the hell are you using my name?
Yeah.
Why are you telling people you're going to do stuff for me? What's the scuttlebutt that I hear coming back? What are all these bank accounts being open? Why is Jim and Frank and the why are they all getting money? Why are they getting checks?
Where's all this coming from?
What are you doing? And whatever drug you're doing, can I have some of it too?
Yeah. How are you? Are people paying you to smoke crack? What's going on?
Are you doing that limitless drug?
Yeah.
Like
how's this working?
Like the movie?
Yeah, because you don't look like that. He looked like the beginning. He looked like Bradley Cooper at the beginning of the movie.
I know. We've seen all.
You're doing it wrong.
We've seen all the pictures. If this is all that's going on, how do you have time? Who is setting up all of these bank accounts? Who's setting up all of these LLCs? Why is the entire family getting cash?
I got to know.
Don't you think the president, as a loving and good father, should have said that? But as we see yesterday, when after The View said that everything is family to Biden, the granddaughter in the deal will no longer have the Biden's last name. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, he's not big on children.
By the way, I'm laughing at my laughter comes from The View, stating that he's such a family man. He's such a family man, and then just like we'll never recognize the granddaughter. We'll never recognize my legitimate granddaughter.
Yeah. He's
a family
all about
man.
His family, except for her. I mean, he's all about his family. I mean, he doesn't like young family, but he clearly likes family.
God,
yeah.
Oh.
Well, maybe if she grows up and becomes a crack addict, she'll get more attention. I don't know.
Ooh. No, I'm going to say that's brutal. I mean, true, but brutal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's brutal because it is true, right? Yeah. This is the this is the entire approach. Look, hey, hold on a second. What if she's peddling influence later in life? And the big guy's going to, you're a Biden. You're a real Biden.
Come back into the family.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden's ex-business associate, Tony Bobulinski, and his lawyers contacted the U.S. attorney leading the investigation into President Biden's son, offering to testify before the federal grand jury, but never heard back from prosecutors. Bobulinski, who worked with Hunter Biden to create the joint venture Sinohawk Holdings with the Chinese energy company CEFC, was interested in providing testimony to the federal grand jury collecting evidence as part of the years-long investigation into the president's son. A source familiar with the matter told Fox News Digital. The source told Fox that Bobulinski's lawyers reached out to U.S. Attorney for Delaware David Weiss and said Bobulinski was available. The source told Fox News that Bobulinski and his lawyers never heard back from them. The source said the lawyers were baffled by the fact that the prosecutors never sought Bobulinski's testimony. Bobulinski would have been able to provide information about Hunter Biden's business dealings, specifically related to the joint venture with CEFC and whether President Biden himself was involved. The information comes after the Iowa whistleblowers testified that the federal investigation into Hunter Biden was influenced by politics. There's no reason to not put him before the grand jury. None.
Right.
If you are truly concerned about justice, right?
Right. Well, because I would think, all right, look, if you believe he's lying, then let him lie to a grand jury.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, that's another thing when you look at it, and it is no small thing that every single person we know now that has come forward has been willing to testify under oath, the whistleblowers.
Right.
And
the so-called whistleblowers.
Bobulinski, the Republican-led so-called whistleblowers.
Yeah.
As the New York Times wrote the other day.
Right.
But Bobulinski has already testified to the FBI. And so he's been, he's everything he testified for. If he was lying,
you
can go to jail for that.
Yep.
So Bobulinski's willing to go under oath and has. All the whistleblowers have.
Well, I mean, again, if I am Hunter's attorney, I reach out and say, yeah, hey, we support Bobulinski testifying before a grand jury. We think he's lying, and that's where we want him.
Yep.
Let him set himself up. If you think he's lying, if your client is innocent, then you need to support that completely. Have him on record officially testifying before a grand jury and not telling the truth. That comes with a penalty. Oh, wait. Unless he's telling the truth.
So the Bobulinski thing just added another little piece of evidence that the Department of Justice doesn't want to investigate it. And you and I have been waiting for any type of legitimate pushback from the Department of Justice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got the generic stuff from Merrick Garland a week ago. Mm-hmm. They've been quiet for a week then. Nothing.
Yeah, right.
And as soon as the whistleblower information came out about the fact that, what are you talking about? David Weiss did tell 6 people, 6 witnesses were there. Here are the witnesses. There hasn't been a peep out of the Department of Justice on this at all.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope. They've
gone totally silent on it. There's really been no blowback at all. There's been no blowback from Democrats except for the poor Hunter was a crack addict.
Uh-huh.
That's been it.
Yep.
And I think before that it was just Jamie Raskin saying, it's all hearsay evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you mean hearsay?
You're not in court yet.
Yeah. It doesn't. And then Raskin's been quiet on this.
Yeah.
And when we saw yesterday that, some of the analysis that the New York Times was referring to, the Republican-led so-called whistleblowers, that's when we went, wow, they're trying to find everything they can to try to destroy the reputations of at least Shapley. I know they are.
Yeah.
Shapley, whatever. I know they have to be because that was an indication they're looking for anything. What can we do? Okay, call them the Republican-led so-called whistleblowers, and it was pointed out in the analysis they've never said that about any of the other whistleblowers that have come forward. Why would these be so-called whistleblowers?
Right.
Well, because it's Republican-led, the investigation, so they become so-called whistleblowers. Mm-hmm. But that's where you can see the bias in the media.
Yeah.
But it also shows they're looking and trying to get anything because that was so incredibly petty, and they still put it in there anyway, knowing it would be obvious it would show their incredible bias. They don't care because they're political activists, but it does show everybody else because that's the question. Why aren't they demonizing, Shapley on this?
Right.
Why aren't they going crazy? They're not really going after Bobulinski. They really never did that much. It was so early, they just didn't pay attention to what he had to say, if you remember.
Right.
And so that's another thing that you can look at and say, why? And I want to stress again, because I think it's so important to differentiate this from the Donald Trump colluded with the Russians investigation. They were always allegations chasing evidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mueller.
Fishing expeditions.
Right. Mueller was appointed to do a fishing expedition for the generic statement that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack or to hack or change the outcome of the election. Now go find how he did that.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't find anything, as we know. In fact, when the investigation started, they knew they had nothing, including from the dossier.
Right.
And they knew that everything was suspicious. That's why they didn't go, because if you truly believed, if you said, okay, where do we go to get the best evidence against Trump? Trump colluded with the Russians. Where do we go? Wow, the FBI got a secret warrant to spy on his campaign?
Mm-hmm.
My God, that has to be some damning evidence. We've got to go and get that warrant immediately, and they never went down that path. Why? Because they knew that the dossier was bogus.
Well, and see how the two conflict, right? The assignment of Mueller as special prosecutor. Go see if this happened. Well, you know something was going on because you were able to justify a warrant for somebody in his campaign.
Right.
You already know this.
Yeah. So you got evidence.
You got evidence, or do you?
Yeah, they didn't.
And they've never seen it. I mean, nobody's ever pointed out that conflict in those two areas. Well, that would be easy because you got the justification for the warrant on Carter Page.
Yep. Right.
So you don't have to look very far. Mueller should have been able to walk in and go, okay, let's get it. Oh, they didn't do that. They didn't go back that far.
Because they knew the dossier was bogus by
exactly.
that time. And so in this case against Joe Biden, none of it is allegations searching for evidence.
No.
All of it is evidence and tying it together and allegations coming out from whistleblowers. And the major evidence still so far has come from Hunter Biden himself. And what he has written and what he has said and what is on his laptop that was verified as legit by the FBI in December of 2019. They knew almost immediately. It was. It looks like it was within days they knew it was his lap. They knew it wasn't Russia disinformation. So when the media was saying it was possible Russia disinformation and wasn't going to carry it, when the intelligence officials all came out and said it might be Russia disinformation, the FBI knew that was bogus.
Yep.
At that time and never said a word.
Nope.
But the evidence is Hunter Biden himself. The evidence is Treasury Department suspicious activity reports that were filed by banks who were looking for possible fraud, money laundering, or whatever, the typical signs they look for. And those were sent right to the U.S. Treasury Department, and it was Hunter Biden and all of those bank accounts that the family was using, and the whistleblowers that have all been under oath.
Yep.
And so it's a completely different ballgame here, and they know it. Coming up far in the bottom of the hour, we will get to some of the interview that James Comer did with Fox News yesterday with the morning show.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting stuff that he brought up because he's making now more allegations. That on the way, 866-90, Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And then yesterday, Hunter Biden was deposed as part of the lawsuit against him by the Delaware laptop repair shop owner.
Yeah.
What's his name? John Paul Isaac, is it? Yeah, John Paul Isaac. Filed a lawsuit against Biden in October of 2022 in Delaware for defamation. Biden filed a countersuit in March, alleging that the computer shop owner illicitly distributed Biden's personal data and accused him of 6 counts of invasion of privacy. He's got no case there.
No.
Yeah. So, but Biden was deposed yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the customer did not return the laptop within 90 days, and Mac Isaac could not get in touch with him. He said he first searched the emails by keyword in June or July of 2019. So...
yeah.
I think legally he's fine because they would have gone after him early on.
Right.
So
yeah,
be interesting to see. I just want to. I can't wait to see what the legal issues of that, whether it even gets to court or not.
Right.
If you're Hunter Biden, would you want that to get to actual court?
No. No, I mean that's the door. Think about it. The laptop in the shop is the door to all of it.
Right. And the thing is, too, we now know that because of the whistleblowers, we now know the FBI knew the laptop was legit in December of 2019.
Right.
So there's no question about anything there.
Right.
And so they're trying to say that he did something illegally. Nobody has made that accusation.
Nope.
Nobody in law enforcement that the computer shop owner did anything that was wrong.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't want that getting to court.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when you want.
And thank you.
That's right. You can listen to the show. We record the show. That's our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We feel 5 hours. Somebody asked me that the other day. Was your podcast your show? It's like, well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do 5 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We do.
That's enough. All right, let's hear from Representative James Comer, who was on the Fox Morning Show, Fox and Friends, yesterday, and he's always throwing out, more information. And yesterday he, did it again, talked about where the president might be compromised and more.
I mean, look, Joe Biden has, on day one, he changed our energy policy in America that put China first and America last. He went in on day one and ended the China Initiative, which was an investigation at all our public universities of a very organized Chinese spy ring where China was sending students to universities to steal our research and development.
So you're saying because members of the Hunter Biden family and the extended Joe Biden family got money through various foreign entities, including things from China, that the president is compromised?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How does he compromise?
He's compromised because he's taken so much money from China. When you go in and you end the China Initiative, which every university president, even the most liberal university president, said is a problem. These Chinese students are coming over here. You go in a research lab in any university, whether it's in Kentucky or in an Ivy League school, and there are Chinese students in there. They ended that because they said that was racial profiling, that was discrimination. But the university presidents, even the most liberal ones, wanted that. They ended that. That's an example of a policy decision.
What else have you found? Because the panel has identified 6 policy decisions that indicate he may have been compromised.
We also think that he fired the prosecutor in Burisma. He bragged about it. He's talked about it. That was beneficial to Burisma. That's what the bribe in the FBI Form 1023 was all about. They wanted to get Joe Biden to terminate that prosecutor because they were wanting to come to the United States and start an initial public offering, and they couldn't do it if they were under investigation in Ukraine.
Now, that's important that he brought that up. You've got to, I mean, as we have said, if you're going to start talking about it, you need to complete it. Why? What was the reason? And that isn't talked about enough. When you talk about the bribe in Burisma, well, what did Burisma want?
Right.
And you've got to always get to that point. What did they want? They wanted something, obviously, for paying that, for paying the money. And so what did they want? And he said what they wanted. They wanted to come in and do some investing here in the United States, and they couldn't do it while under investigation.
Right.
Yep. And that makes sense, right? I mean, that so far, that is the one that you could tie in as of everything that he said. Now you're talking about the fact of when he said, the Chinese Initiative, which was the United States looking at universities to see if the Chinese were sending students to be spies, and all these colleges wanted, this to be done, and Biden pulled it. Nope, that's racial profiling. We can't do that.
Right.
Of course, it's not racial profiling. It's not looking at what any Chinese person is doing. They're not going and saying, you're an American Chinese family that have been here. We're going to start investigating you.
Right.
This is specifically those that are coming from China to the United States, knowing that this is going on. And so you're going to have to find the tie-in to. You've got. Apparently, he believes he's got the tie-in, and by the way he explained it with Burisma, they wanted to invest. Well, that's easy. Okay, that makes sense. For China, all right, who did you give to in China that may have talked to somebody that was part of trying to stop that program and was paying you specifically to stop that program? Was it the Chinese energy company?
Right.
Representative? Was he attempting to do that? Now, Comer didn't say that, and you've got to, in any of these things, you've got to complete, as we have said, connect the dots.
Yeah.
And on the Burisma thing, he connected the dots immediately. Well, they wanted to invest here. They wanted to, they wanted companies here in the United States. They couldn't do it while under investigation. Okay, that would be a reason to take a bribe.
Right.
That would be the incentive behind it. Now, it'd be interesting to know what the energy company, especially with the threat that Hunter Biden put on that Chinese energy official, you want to know at that point, okay, what did they want for that? Or what did they get for that? Because that threat was after Biden was vice president, making it implying that they got something. That
Right. We did our part.
Right. We did our part. Your part was to pay us.
So what was done?
Right.
And
now
that was in July of 2017.
Right. And now you're trying to lowball us on what the commitment actually was.
Well, that implies, and I would like to know the timeline. It doesn't actually imply a timeline, but certainly you can put it together. If that message, that WhatsApp message, was written at the end of July of 2017, 6 months after Biden was no longer vice president was what they promised delivered during the time he was vice president.
Right. And then the payment didn't arrive on time.
Right.
Because that awfully sounds like, and I'm just saying this because of my experience as a bill collector, a former bill collector, about 6 months is when you start really getting serious.
Well, and there's the thing.
You don't
okay,
like those
because
6-month delinquencies.
He's at that point, Biden is no longer vice president, so he's no longer in a position to do anything with any power whatsoever, and you're kind of whatever is owed to you if you're Hunter is lingering, and you're thinking, well, they're just going to walk away, and they got this for free,
right? Because there was, without question, a sense of extreme urgency.
Yeah, like tonight. We want it done now.
Let's hear more from Comer yesterday on Fox News.
Repeatedly lies about the role he plays in this organization. Tony Bobulinski says they met at the Beverly Hilton Hotel and they talk, says, take care of my family. Good luck the rest of the way. He's never been asked, do you know who Tony Bobulinski is? He set up all these international deals. And when they stabbed him in the back, he came and did what he did. He told everyone the truth. So we know this. The CEFC Chinese contact, he would know a lot. Those tapes in Ukraine would tell a lot. Right. So what are you doing to get these people that have disappeared?
Well, we're going to start bringing people in for depositions. We're starting with Devin Archer. We'll hear from Bobulinski very soon. All the people that were on the inside of these so-called business deals, they're going to be able to tell exactly what the Bidens did in exchange for this money. And here's the big thing. They're going to tell what Joe Biden knew and how involved Joe Biden was in the family schemes. And I think that's the most important thing that will come out of the depositions. What did Joe Biden know and when did he know
In the WhatsApp, he says, my family is better at delivering, to paraphrase, than anybody else. How many more WhatsApp messages are there out there?
We think there are several more. But again,
have you asked Apple for them?
Well, we're going to. We're going to request phone records. We're going to do a lot of subpoenas with respect to credit card receipts. I mean, there is a lot of information out there that no one's tried to get. One thing we've learned from all the whistleblowers is the federal government never investigated the Bidens for bribery.
Regarding that WhatsApp message, that was after Joe Biden was out of office.
That's right.
So he was no longer vice president. Do you have any evidence that shows that Joe Biden himself, I mean, you're saying he's compromised, Joe Biden ever take money that you can figure out? You got, I know you're putting together all these big puzzle pieces. But do you have the goods on Joe Biden?
Yes. When Joe Biden was vice president, he went to Romania to talk about foreign policy and foreign aid. Days after he left Romania, while he was vice president, money started wiring to the different shell companies for the Biden family to the tune of $1 million. 12 of 13 payments made from the Romanian foreign national to the Biden shell company.
So you've got the financial records.
Vice president.
Do you have anybody who says the reason he's getting that money is because he did this?
Stay tuned for these depositions. You're going to be very interested in these depositions.
Who's responsible for this? Why does this family get a pass? Why are they able to get away with all of this?
A lot of the whistleblowers have said the same thing. When I said, how do you justify this? How does the FBI justify this? How does the DOJ justify this? And they said, because they believe in their heart the alternative is worse. They hate Donald Trump. They don't want to see Donald Trump come back in office. Joe Biden, in their mind, was a better deal than Donald Trump. And they have gone in so deep on covering this up,
when they started investigating, then they could have found a different candidate.
But the problem is that William Barr was Attorney General when that laptop was authenticated by the FBI. Did Bill Barr know that? Did Donald Trump know that?
Bill Barr was told that the laptop was Russian disinformation, even though we know the FBI knew.
So they lied to Bill Barr.
They lied to Bill Barr.
Okay, that was important because you and I asked those questions. What did Barr know?
Yeah,
so
because we haven't heard anything from Barr.
Yeah. So Comer is now By the way, I do think that the Republicans do need and will offer our services somebody who can disseminate all the important things each and every day, so you're completing more dots.
Yes,
and
because
and what's your price? What are you willing to do it for? Not that it's about the money.
No, it's not about the money. But if it were about the money, it would be $2 billion. Theoretically.
No, but that was important because you and I asked the Bill Barr question, and what Comer's saying is they lied to Bill Barr. Wow. Yeah. Let's continue here.
Lied to Bill Barr?
I don't know that, but I know that Bill Barr was told the laptop was Russian disinformation. And remember, this is at a time when you had some conspiracy theorists around Donald Trump that were coming in and making lots of accusations. Some of them ended up being true, some of them didn't. But Bill Barr relied on the FBI to tell him, look, when they got this bribery form, this is all Russian disinformation.
But we know in October they authenticated it. So real quick.
Now, he just said there when Bill Barr, he's saying Bill Barr saw the bribery thing.
Yeah, right.
And he was told it was disinformation.
Wow. Yeah.
Barr needs to come out and say that himself.
No, I think that's something that needs to be heard. That's something we need to hear from him.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things we need to hear from him on, by the way.
Well, then he should be called.
That's exactly where I was going.
He should be called.
Yep.
Call him up. Deposition.
Right.
And then when you do all the depositions, that's when you've got the case, and that's when you have the public testimony.
Well, because here's the thing. We're not going to get it from Merrick Garland. We're not going to get anything out of Merrick Garland. No. We know that. What did they have to tell Christopher Wray to get anything out of him? We've already seen the documents.
Yeah, we have the evidence.
And
that you're implying to us doesn't exist.
And even then, we're not even close to full cooperation from the FBI, from FBI leadership.
No, I think it's shut down completely.
So now, oh my gosh, we may have just hit something here. You said it. If Barr testifies and reveals a great deal of stuff as the former AG, it's all over but the crying. Because there are two ways that testimony goes, or deposition. He's either going to say, I wasn't in on the day-to-day, blah, 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 blah. I would have a hard time believing he was not briefed on a daily basis. You're telling me that the son and the former vice president at that time himself are involved in, and you didn't know anything about it? Yeah, you did. And what is it?
Well, Comer's saying he was lied to.
Yep, exactly. Well, I don't know that I believe that. I'm not sure. You know how you find out?
Well, from what I get, he is saying that based on the fact that Bill Barr told him that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was. That's how what I got out of that.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Because that's the only way he could say, "Well, no, Bill Barr was lied to," because Bill Barr told me. Otherwise, he can't answer that.
Well,
and I'm always looking for exaggeration from Comer, just from any Republican, because I don't want them to do what Democrats do.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One thing that has frustrated us throughout this whole investigation is when even conservative commentators and news people have an opportunity to interview James Comer, they never ask the questions that we want asked. And I've got to give credit to Fox and Friends. They were asking every single question that we wanted asked. The things that are sitting out there where we're amazed, and that's why we say they need some kind of marketing team to disseminate this information and put out the strong talking points each and every day, because they're not doing it. But thank goodness Fox and Friends, a great job at asking the right questions to Comer yesterday.
This is Red Eye Radio. on Westwood One.